Hello, everyone. This is Judy Ann Chung, your leadership coach and owner of Coaching You Upward, where I work with leaders and go-getters and high performers, which basically move their ideas from concept to reality and just get it done. In addition to that, of course, I love working with women. I have a passion for them because I like to help women regroup, refocus, and revision and go after the rewarding life that they so deserve. So part of doing that is to serve you, our community, which is to have different Facebook Lives on Sundays, usually at this time, and hopefully bring you content that you will get something from. And in doing so, I have different guests. And our guest today is Richard DeVayne, who is our Emmy Award-winning journalist. Richard currently works in North Carolina at the NBC station there, and he has covered stories from the presidents, different presidents, to the everyday people. And he also shares with us that the stories that he most enjoy are the people who are the everyday ones that has basically been thrust with difficult and challenging situations. And those are the stories that he definitely enjoys. I asked Richard, what was a fun fact about him? And Richard actually shared that he actually had to go to bed.
Oh.
He had to go to bed every night by 7:30 p.m. Up until high school. So I'm not quite sure if he really think that was fun back then, but he definitely thinks it's a fun fact now. So before I turn you over to Richard, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge a few people that I've seen come on with us. Alison, I see you. Edward, I see you. Thanks for joining us. Please go ahead if you haven't done so already and share this live. That would be awesome. Hi, Edward. And so Richard, you want to share a little bit about yourself before we kick off?
Pretty much what you said, even the part about the 7:30 bedtime. I don't want to date myself, but a lot of shows that we watched as kids, the people actually watched as a child. I grew up and had to catch up on them in high school and college and stuff like that, and reruns. So
Okay.
first in a lot of my sitcoms as other people coming out, but I am now because I watched them, and still to this date I'll see some episodes on TV and go, I never saw that. Oh, fine. Wow. Okay. So now everyone knows that. Okay. I was born.
Listen, I just wanted to see if you thought it was still, a fun fact or not, so yeah.
Funny. It's one of those things you think of at the time when you're going to bed at 7:30, especially in the summer, and it's daylight. You hear kids playing outside. That's not fun, but you're like, your parents knew it was best. Grew up in New York City, Midtown Manhattan. I'm originally from Pink Hill. I'll say my mother's area, Pink Hill, North Carolina. Never heard of it. There's another town that's bigger where I was born called Kinston, North Carolina. My father's people are from Wilson, North Carolina. So Carolina, Tar Heel roots. I tell people that I grew up in the best of both worlds. Most of the time during the week in New York City, in Manhattan, and the five boroughs there, hanging out there. And then every time we had summer, or if we had Christmas or Easter or even a 3-day weekend, we'd all jump in the car and head south to down south, as we called it. We would wait till we get to where my mother's father's farm, and then that'd be called down south, and we're down south. So those are my upbringings, and a little bit about me. I'm a journalist. That's what I love to do, and I'm gonna let you ask the questions. You just I'll take a break today and let you ask the questions.
So guys, can you imagine, right? I am actually interviewing a journalist, right? So, he's probably going to put me on the hot spot, like, listen, make sure you do your job right. You better ask me, good questions. But before we go any further, Richard, your head is a little bit higher. If you could just come down a little bit, because we're chopping off the top of your head.
Oh, so you want more headroom. Okay, so
yeah.
Okay, we'll sit back a little.
Let me see. Guys, can you tell me, because I'm actually seeing Richard's head that's still being chopped off a little bit.
Is my head off? Okay.
Yeah. So just before we go too much into it. All right. So as I said, guys, so for those of you who haven't yet shared, thank you, thank you, thank you. Victor, I saw you on. Thanks for joining us. And so let's go into it. The topic today is going to be a letter to your younger self, right? So Richard said earlier that he didn't want to date himself, but I think we can all relate as to, having to go to bed at that time. Well, to be honest, no, that's not true. I don't really have a curfew. I was lucky. I didn't have a curfew. I never had one growing up, actually. I didn't. I guess because I came in at the appropriate time. I don't know. But my mother felt like there's no reason she should give me a curfew, that I should be mature enough to know when I need to get off the streets. And yeah, so that was the indirect message. So I guess it was stricter if you think about it. Okay. So, guys, as always, thank you so much for joining us, and please feel free to make this an interactive discussion and, ask Richard your questions also. So, all right, so let's kick off. So, Richard, I know you have shared a little bit about what you do for a living, and of course, I've made fun of you and your fun facts and all that stuff. But I still want to know a little bit more about Richard, the person, not necessarily the journalist. I want to kick it off that way.
Okay, like what would you like to know? What would you
I would like you to share with us, okay, who's Richard? If I was to ask who's Richard, Richard is not a journalist. Who is Richard?
Most people who know me would say Richard is silly.
Okay.
Loves to have fun. Never a dull moment when Richard's around. Richard is at times very sarcastic. I was going to say witty, but then that would be self-serving. So I'll say sarcastic. Most people say sarcastic. Loves what he does, has a passion for people, has a passion for life itself. Richard is nocturnal amazingly for someone who had to go to sleep at 7:30. I guess I'm making up for it now. So during the daytime hours, I'm okay, but at night is when I wake up and I really want to do things, which is kind of tough. Most places you live, except for New York City, streets close at 2 now.
Okay.
Richard is a nocturnal being. Good with family and friends. Don't have a lot of friends. Have people that I'm close to, but not a lot of friends. I have about 4 or 5 guy friends and about 3 or 4 lady friends who I would say are, that you can confide in and things like that. So
Okay.
friend, it takes a lot for me.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. So you've told us about now being the nocturnal person, your friendships. How did that influence you in the career that you've chosen?
Oh, wow. Okay. How did I think what happened was the career I chose me probably from the time I was a baby. I mean, and I just said this yesterday to some friends, at about 4 years old, my mother said that my father was about to turn the TV. Remember the old fashioned turn the TV things, rabbit ears and everything, to date myself a little bit more. Basically, he was about to turn the channel, and as a little 4-year-old, I said, "No, Daddy, don't turn from the news. I like the news; it's got more power." So even then,
oh wow,
I recognized what news was, and I recognized what that was, and I wanted to continue to watch it. Growing up, I've always been drawn to telling people stories, stories about people, real stories about people. Thought that I would probably be a newspaper writer. But as things evolved, I went from writing newspapers and studying for that in college, and then into radio, and finally settling into television. I don't know as much as that shaped my background shaped me for TV, or I used my background to help me in what I do now. My interaction with people is something that I use every day. I love it. This is the job that I would do if we're not getting paid to do it. So I can tell you that's how much I love what I do. I like the human nature. I like the story of the human existence and what people are doing in their day-to-day lives, and finding something really special in people's stories. From just personal conversations with you, I'm always asking you questions, always trying to find out what makes you tick, what makes you. I'll tell you a little secret. Now I'll wait till later to tell you the secret about how to get people to talk more.
Okay, all right.
Well,
so you mean I'm not getting you to talk enough just yet?
No, I'm talking. I'm talking, but I can give you.
Oh, okay. All right. I mean, because I can round it up, Okay. All right.
It's called
So,
space. That's what it's called. That's and I
I'm
was.
sorry.
It's called filling space.
Okay. Okay. Got you.
Okay.
All righty. So, you told us basically that you don't know which one chose you, whether you chose the profession or the profession chose you. But that part that you said about with your, what you said to your dad, um, I guess that was probably one of the earlier indications. I don't know if it's the earliest, but the earlier indication. So that leads me into one of the other questions that I have to you, which would be if you were to compare the younger Richard to the Richard you are now, what are some of the core difference and the more significant differences that you've observed, good or bad?
Yeah. Wow. There are a lot.
Okay.
Basically, the Richard now knows. Has learned a lot. Has learned a lot of the mistakes that young Richard's going to make.
Mhm.
You hear that inner voice that we have speaking to you saying, "Don't do that." That's the older Richard to the younger Richard. Don't do that. Don't go down that street. Don't do that. Say no to her. That sort of thing. Uh,
Okay.
all of those things are important. If I could tell uh, the younger Richard anything, it would be from everything that you experience, good and bad.
Uh-huh.
Don't let it crush you because you're going to be the older Richard. You're going to make it to
Okay.
the point, and you're going to be wiser for it. Of course, if we all could follow what the older, wiser us tells. Oops, I'm getting out. Boy, I have to charge our. Okay, there we go. We're a little low on battery, so I'll at some point plug in. I don't think it'll affect us at all. But I would tell the younger Richard that you're. There was a time for 4 or 5 years that I actually had left the business per se. I was doing
Mhm.
marketing for a company,
Mm.
and it was fun. It was interesting, and it gave me some different values, a different perspective of things. But never give up on your dream. Never give up
Okay.
because it's gonna work out for you. You're gonna do things, amazing things in your career. You're gonna meet some really phenomenal people, and you're gonna have a good time. Uh,
Mhm. Mhm.
but life is fraught with mistakes and stuff like that. A friend of mine, when I was out of television, actually made a comment that I never forgot. He said that we are the sum total of every decision we've made, good and
Mm.
bad.
Okay.
So that's important to remember. So the older Richard would write a letter to the younger Richard, which would say something, and there would be partly stated that you're going to go through some ups and some downs,
Mhm.
but you're going to come out as better for it. So just
Okay.
stay the course, and that's what I would say.
All right. So while you're trying to connect, what
Oh,
I'm going to do is just
oh,
touch.
okay, it'll just take 2 seconds to connect. I'm sorry about that.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
we should be
All
fine.
right. So, hi, Carl. Thanks you so much for joining us. Allison says my curfew was when the street lights came on.
Oh yeah, you gotta get time.
Exactly, exactly. And Allison, the funny thing about that is I was never given an actual time, but trust me, that street light thing, oh Lord, that was a great indication to tell me, oh, it's getting dark. I better, run on home. And Edward is saying, I can tell. Okay. Then he says it's very important to love what you, I guess it means love what you do and what you have a passion for. Absolutely, absolutely. And Victor, hello to you too. Okay, great. So again, guys, for those of you who haven't shared, go ahead and share on the topic that we have today is a letter to our younger self. And we're speaking with Richard DeVayne, who is an Emmy Award-winning journalist working in Charlotte, North Carolina at NBC. All righty. So as we continue, are you all connected now?
I'm fine.
Perfect. Right?
I'm
Oh,
good.
perfect. All right. So you shared with us some of the differences. Obviously, there are mistakes that everyone in life, nobody's perfect. There are mistakes that you would have made, and you said that there are differences that you definitely observed. But give us an example of one of the safe differences that you can say in air.
Wow, you said so. You said safe.
Safe.
Of course, because I know there are people. Wow. Some of the differences. Some friends of mine, a couple of my buddies, told me how to better handle dealing with management or people who you don't get along with, and just
Right.
you know, uh, not letting them know how much you have this, that you don't, you think differently than they do. Uh,
Right.
and using more of your God sense to do that, not telling people off, so to speak. I was never someone who was really confrontational, but still, there's it's kill them with kindness and things of that.
Okay.
Also, get some people will think that it's so important to tell someone to give them a piece of their mind when there is a bigger. Let me equate this to what I do. There's a story you really want to tell.
Hmm.
Way back when, if they told you no, you just have to wait till that day when you have extra time. You say, remember that story I told you about? I think we can do it now.
Hmm.
You can work on it.
Okay.
That's one of the things that I've learned to do. Some people would rather make a scene, make a fuss, and then totally lose the ability to ever do that story again, and maybe lose their job over what they call principle. But
Right.
sometimes we want to get the story out,
Right.
and that's one of the things I've learned to do. So tact is important. The way we
Hmm.
carry ourselves is important. Let's see. You want something really juicy and something really that I shouldn't have done. Let's
Absolutely. I mean, come on. We
that.
want to keep our viewers engaged, and
I,
so they can have something
well,
to,
I do have
you
two
know.
children that might watch this, and I want to be very careful what I say. No,
Oh, absolutely.
there was that night in Dallas. There was that night in Atlanta. There was that night in Houston. Oh my God, there's a lot of nights. No, um, whew. Next question. Let's think. I'll come back to that.
Okay. All right. All right. So, guys, I think I've earned my my badge right about now. I have just put an Emmy award-winning journalist on the spot. Woo-hoo! Anyway, he's not having it at all. Anyway,
I'll answer it. I'm just thinking of some
no,
stuff.
it's okay. It's okay. It's all right. We'll move on from there. We'll keep it safe. All right. So, but let's stay on the topic about being able to understand when and how you should really respond to something or someone if they're being really difficult, and whether it be standing on principle or not, because I can relate to that. I remember once years ago having a conversation with a lady, and she was really very upset. It wasn't obviously no professional environment. And she was extremely upset. And she says, I want to just tell them a piece of my mind. So I said to her, and after you've done that, you have lost all power. And she goes, no, but I would have let them know what I think. I said, but you then, after letting them know what you think, you do not have the power to effect your thoughts and to effect what you've just said. So if you lose a seat at the table, then you have no power. So the reason I wanted to sink into that, because that is so important. A lot of us think that, oh, okay, we can say anything we want to say. And those are some of the things that even I learned growing up, so when us making the comparison of the younger Richard versus the current Richard, one of the things we can safely say that we've learned and mature with is like, okay, how do we say it, when we say it, and do we say it?
And do we say? Do we say?
Exactly, right. Because there's some things that, you don't need to say at all, right? So, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I agree 100% with that, and that's something that we get tested on, or I get tested on daily. Over the last several months, I've been tested on: are there things that I should say, or are there things that I should just let be?
Mm-hmm.
And when you think about them, and other people you discuss them with we all have those people we go to for advice, and they say, "What good would saying it do?
Right,
Can't change anything. It's just you're giving someone a piece of your mind."
right,
Move
right.
on and just but I'm not to say, I mean, hey, if we're talking office politics, if there's something that you have to say, there's a way to say it. Just stepping back, reassessing, and just looking at it from the other person's side. And I think that's one of the things that so many people don't do. We have to always, when you're ready to discuss anything, even if it's a relationship situation, think about how the other person is looking at it, and
Mm-hmm.
step back and say, well, maybe they're looking at it because of this reason, or this has gone on in their life, or this is going on right now in their life. And
Right,
then that might help you uh, figure a better way to come across and to say something.
right, right.
I
Okay.
was, I regret, I'll say this now, and this will date me, but it's okay. I was in college, and there was a famous musician, old, he was very old. It was Cab Calloway, had appeared, I went to Grambling State University, and he had come to campus, and he did his show, and at the end of his show, the girl that I was dating, who's very much into theater and acting and all of that, just like I was, but she was a little older than me, and she had better perspectives than me. She was
Mm-hmm.
like, I want to go up and shake his hand. And I was like, no, let's go. And she was like, I have to go shake his hand. And I was angry. And I said, no, let's go now. So I walked out to the car. We went home and we argued about it. And I didn't see her side. And then as time progressed, I realized that this was something that she felt she had to do. He later passed, of course, as everyone knows. But she wanted to touch greatness. And I was so into myself and how I looked and being cool and everything. And come on, woman, let's go. And blah blah blah. That would never happen now. But if I had even had half of the knowledge that I have now, I would have stepped back from that and I would have said, okay, baby, you go shake his hand. If now with the cell phone, let's take a picture with him and enjoy that moment. But that's one of the things I can say sincerely that I regret, because I always think about it. So I mean, it's like 3 years ago, and I still times X years ago. No, it's a long time ago, and I still remember it. So it is a pretty significant moment.
Well, I mean, you made it very significant when you said that you basically devoid her of the, I'm paraphrasing, the opportunity to touch greatness. So obviously the fact that you're going to put it in those words, touch greatness, that in itself, I can see why it would have stayed with you to a certain degree already.
Footnote. I do know at the time I even knew he was great. He's greatness now. He will always be greatness. And don't think for a second that she didn't go and touch greatness, because she did. Over there, she talked to him, and we dealt with our stuff a little bit later. Had she not done it, then that would have been a different story. I might have,
Oh, okay. So in other words, you're saying that there was some level of redemption on your side, or
no?
Was that?
She was going to do what she wanted to do in that situation, and years later, I realized and I understand.
Oh, I got you.
I understand the error of my ways. I understand my mistakes. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. So Edward is saying, my tongue has cost me some good business. I have learned how to humble myself. Okay, Edward. I mean, that's good, because as you say, even, being an entrepreneur, there are certain things that even on Facebook, there are certain conversations that you want to get involved in. And I'm sure you, Richard, I'm sure that impacts you too with what you do. You really want to get involved in, and sometimes it's just right on the tip of your tongue. You really want to send those fingers, typing away, but you have to restrain yourself just because of what you do, who you are. And obviously, your walking, talking, writing brand, so to speak. So yes, I can totally relate to that. So yeah, Edward, I think we can all relate to that also. So thanks for saying that. Alrighty, guys. So that's a good one. So moving on from there, I think that the other question I was going to ask you. You said when you were watching the TV, those are some of the things that influenced you to be a journalist. But you also said that you went towards marketing. Now, did you go towards marketing because you wasn't sure what you want to do? You're still trying to find your path, or what?
Okay, two things about that. Because I wanted to make money.
Okay.
I got a job out of college in a small TV station in Monroe, Louisiana, and was not making any money. And had to refocus. It was my way of refocusing myself after I left it, because I was like on TV, and people like, oh, you're on TV, and you get caught up in that yourself. And then I left it, and I still have a card from one of my best friends. I went and I was working, and working a regular 9 to 5, and every time I get ready to leave, it's like, oh, here's a little bonus or whatever. You make more money and things like that. I was young and enjoying life and everything. But I remember, I still have this card tucked away safely. One of my best friends, Kashaka, had sent me a index card, 3x5 index card. And at the time, he was researching and studying things, and he found out this fact about 95% of the people in the world are living or doing jobs that they don't like.
Oh wow!
He said
95. That's high.
That's a high. The thing that is not their calling, that is not their passion. There's always in the way you can figure it out if you're one of that 95% is just think if you are doing something and you desire in your heart to do something else,
right?
That your passion has always been TV and news. Mm-hmm. Do your passion,
right?
And through a series of events, I was back in TV in about a year and a half after that, doing my passion, and so I haven't let it go since then. But so that's important. That's something that's important to me. living your passion, no matter what it is. And it doesn't have to be your career per se. It could be just where you live or what who you choose to be around. Any of those things, as long as you're passionate about life,
Mm-hmm.
you'll have a passionate life. And
Okay.
these things sound cliche, they sound simplistic, but they're really not. They're things that you should be doing every day, waking up and you know, uh, who is it? There's one of the bodybuilders who says, every day wake up, make your bed because you've already accomplished something. That's a sense of accomplishment. It's something that you don't have to do. No one would know if you don't do it unless you live with someone. But just make your bed. Just start your day
Mm-hmm.
that way, doing something.
Right.
We want to live a passion-filled life, and one of the things I would tell anybody is, I've never gone to work dreading going to work. Now, don't get me wrong. There may be people, there may be a weather situation that I'm not particular about that day, but I've never dreaded going to work
To
because I
work.
do
Okay.
that job, and so I,
Oh, okay. All right. I mean, I never consider talking about finding your passion as cliche, for the mere reason that there are a lot of people who have gone to their grave who
yeah,
haven't worked in their passion. I think I saw somewhere it was written where some of the greatest ideas is in a graveyard
Les Brown
because,
said that all the
huh?
time. Les Brown, the motivational speaker, quotes that all the time. That
Right.
those cemeteries are filled with people who never lived their passion, who never did what they truly wanted to do. Now, some people say, "Well, I can't because of this, or I can't because of that,"
Hmm.
but you can try and move.
Right.
You know,
Right. Okay. Fair enough. Alrighty. So, as I introduced you multiple times before, as that Emmy Award-winning journalist. Um, Now, what stories led up to that? Now, humor me here because I'm the novice person when it comes to
okay,
that industry.
sure.
So I don't know if it's a story, a series of stories, or something you have to go through for the qualification. Enlighten us.
Yeah, basically, okay. And then let me say something about that. There are a number of awards that I've gotten over the years.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't list them. I've never, not one time, have I ever said I want to submit this for an award.
Okay.
Usually, it's somebody I've worked with who says that's a pretty good story.
Mm-hmm.
Most every time, it's someone else who said that's a pretty good story. That's something that you've done, because every story is, like my baby. Every story is my baby. Some a little bit, you like your baby a little bit more than the other ones. That baby, I don't know, but they're all your babies. But the way the process works, and this is the same in television, like with a TV show. Like if such and such wins a role for whatever, name a show, I don't know, whatever show it is, you name it. It's usually for an episode of that show. It's not for
Okay.
that season, unless it's for the series. They'll say series, but if it's like best actor, best actress, it's for one particular show. Best supporting actor, supporting actress, and it's the same thing for us journalists. It's a particular story. Though there'll be a category, and they have investigative, they have spot news. We'll have feature, something
Mm-hmm.
lighthearted, hard news, investigative, of course, something we dug up or found. Spot news
Okay.
was actually one of my Emmys, is something that you put together that day that happened, within like a certain time period, usually 24 hours, 48 hours. Um, and then there, the way the process works is people from around the country. We're part of the Emmy Association, the National Arts and Sciences Emmy process, and there are chapters all around the country. And we don't vote for ourselves; we vote for other areas, other markets.
Oh, okay.
For Seattle, so that way I'm not like, oh, that's my buddy. There's a chance, but so we sit there and we judge them, and we look at certain characteristics. Was it informative? Was it this? Was it that? And then we award. So, and the reason I like awards, they're nice, but I don't go to awards or anything like that as far as, you know, us awarding, because it's somewhat subjective. On that particular day, you tell a story, you could get lucky and win an award. And there's some journalists out there who've never won anything who I think are phenomenal journalists. And
Mm.
they've submitted a lot of stuff. And there are some people who submit one or two things and they win. Um, some of my favorite things that we've won, as a matter of fact, my station was just awarded a Station of the Year because of our coverage of a series of stories for last year, which was really cool. Those things mean a lot. The team aspect. We all did it together. So it was everyone working together: photographers, reporters, producers, the management team who gave us the stories. Things like that are important to me. I'm not big on awards. It looks good. People like it. Sounds good, but the best of my Emmys and any award that I've ever won is dwarfed by when I run into somebody who walks up to me, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, and just says, "You did a story on a relative, or you did a story and it touched me," or someone writes me a note, an email, and says, "Hey, I really appreciate what you did, getting the word out there, helping us raise money for that person who's been abused, shed light on this injustice, or just that story you did," or I used to have a catchphrase that I used to use. I would tell people good morning. And every so often people would say, they'd use my phrase back at me. Once I had actually, I'll say this, got sick and went to the hospital for a day. When I was leaving, the male and female nurse were looking at me kind of funny as I was walking out. And the male nurse goes, "Good afternoon to you, Richard. Good afternoon." And I looked at him and I was like, oh, he watches me. He was giving me my little phrase. People. So anyway, those things are a lot more to me than awards. But I thank you for mentioning that.
So
secret. It's on my bio. So okay.
What was it?
I said it's on my bio, so everyone knows it. So.
I mean, but let me explore something a little bit here, and is you say that you're not really into awards because it's subjective But the truth is, and there could be someone that's really that you think are quite phenomenal and a lot deserving of it also. But isn't that part of life? Isn't that how?
Yes.
It's just life. I mean, just like with all the awards, aren't they all subjective? So we're all voting on it. So if somebody deems your work at that moment to be of that caliber, to think highly enough of you to award you. Bask in the glow.
I'm not going to shed the spotlight, but I will say this: if you just happen to do a great job, like I said, on one story that makes it, and for the rest of the year, the rest of the eligibility period, you don't do anything that's even half close to that. Yeah, you get awarded in front of all your peers, being blah blah blah. You wanted this award, whatever the award is, but what about the person who every day puts in good, solid, quality work? So I want to remember that, and it's the same with people. Because working in TV, I get to go behind the scenes. I get to see behind the scenes, and it's not just here in Charlotte. I've worked in a lot of stations and been around stations from as small as I don't know how small, Zanesville, Ohio. I actually stopped in one day and met people there, and of course, being from New York, I've been in stations in New York, and I worked in New York during 9/11. I worked at a station in Dallas, and I went up to New York to do 9/11 coverage. And you meet people and people from behind the scenes. And sometimes what you see on TV is not what you get in real life. So so that's why I always have that perspective of letting people know that the real person is the most important, because we all have that personal face. I didn't look like, right now I'm casual, but I looked a lot more casual 20, 30 minutes ago than I do right now. So.
Okay. All righty.
With some people would worry about. Inside joke, folks.
Okay. All right. So, for anyone who's just joining us, again, we are talking about a letter to our younger self. We are leading up to get into that letter. We haven't gotten there yet, so you're still in for the some of the core pieces of advice that Richard would have given to his younger self. And this is Richard DeVayne. He is our Emmy Award-winning. He probably hates to hear me saying that, but I'm going to keep saying it for him. Emmy Award-winning journalist from Charlotte that works with NBC. So again, for those of you who just recently joined us, that's what's going on. And feel free to talk to us. Feel free to ask any questions that you'd like to have. And for those who haven't shared us yet, please also go ahead and do so. Alrighty, so from what you've shared with us so far, it is clear that you are someone who like to focus on the person Okay, whether that person behind the scenes who's doing all this work. So you definitely the humanistic side of your career, um, being a journalist seems to be what really drives you. At least that's what I'm getting from you now, for sure. And I know you've covered the presidents. Even in your short bio, you made it very clear that yes, you've covered the presidents, and yes, obviously those were important stories. But you said what really, really gets you going is that person that has been thrust in that challenging situation. So if you could think for a second of one of those such stories that would really possibly have touched you and hopefully would also touch our viewers.
Yeah. Um, hmm. I was out of television, as I said a little bit earlier. Went back into television as a assignment editor,
Mm-hmm.
assigning crews and digging out for stories and things of that nature. Then I became a producer in Dallas, and then I went back in front of the camera. Uh, and I went to Beaumont, Texas, and probably the biggest story. Well, there were two stories. The space shuttle crashed over Dallas, and actually debris fell in a nearby close to us. So that was the probably the biggest national story that affected us while I was in Beaumont, Texas.
Okay.
But the story that affected me on a more personal level was a young lady who went missing from her house and was later found. Her body was found. Uh, Her name is Denaria Finley, and she
Mm.
was 1 year older than my daughter at the time. And so, of course, there was a very visceral feeling of the parents' pain and
Mm.
dealing with the family and dealing with the emotions of the community, trying to find the killer, who, as of yet, well, has never been found.
Okay.
Of course, police have ideas and things like that, but the person has never been brought to justice, so to speak. Uh, that's something that stayed with me. That's something that'll stay with me forever because, as my daughter was growing up, everything she did from elementary school, Denaria won't be able to finish elementary school,
Mm-hmm.
junior high school, Sweet 16 parties, birthday parties, Christmases.
Mm-hmm.
This child won't have that ability to.
Okay.
So that's the type of that story has always affected me, and the family being able for the people in the community who were not affluent people, were not well-to-do people by any measure, for them to be able to call us and for us to put that story, out there to try to bring some sort of justice. And we can say that we did stories that kind of keep the name alive. And
Okay.
sometimes that's what we do. And that's a story that really touched me. I have like a bunch of stories like that. And I can circle back to something we were talking about earlier about knowing when not to do certain things. One of my biggest pet peeves in this industry that we do is whenever you look at a newscast, and my station's been guilty of this, and stations in Charlotte to New York and every place else in between. When you see police officers
Mm-hmm.
and firefighters, and you might see us showing video on the news and talking about, well, there was a murder or there was this, that, or the other. And you may see a firefighter who's not running with a hose, he's just walking around. He might have his hat off, or he might be laughing, or a police officer might be talking to another officer and they kind of smile. And I've always felt really bad about that because
Mm.
I want to say this, that's not the way it is. What happens is we might get there hours after something's happened. We might get there and we're just shooting video and we don't pay attention. And at that moment, this could be 3 hours after it's happened, and someone could be saying something to lighten the mood, or somebody could just smile because someone said hello or whatever. But as it comes across on TV, it looks like that person at that scene is not caring. I
Right.
guarantee they care a lot more than a lot of us recognize or realize. So that's a pet peeve I have. And I'm saying that to say that I was doing a story once where a young lady had been killed and her family was grieving, and sometimes we shoot our cameras and get them and everything like that, and they were kind of upset about people getting them on camera. And I was about to go live. This was in Kentucky, and I mentioned to them, we're about to go live. I walked up and told them as a group, I said, all of the stations are about to go live. If I don't want to tell you to move, but we're going to be shooting toward this house, and if you're in this area, you may be on camera, but if you go over there, probably no one's going to shoot that way.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, I built a relationship with them.
Okay.
able to and at one point, because it was a very difficult story because of the circumstances with the way the young lady died, and I didn't know at the time. I wasn't trying to build a relationship. I wasn't trying to get in good with them. I was just trying to be a, a genuine person, you know. And
Okay.
so you
Okay.
have to do things like that.
I got you. So, Richard, before we move forward, can you, there is, I'm thinking it's my right, your left. Can you come back a little bit in the
But
frame for me?
this way, is this better?
Yes, I would hope so.
And so
Okay.
you're a director as well. Now you are directing.
Uh, you
Well,
know,
and
um,
it's a swivel chair, so I'm tempted to like rock and all that other stuff.
yeah, can you rock back the other way?
Yeah, you want this way or this way?
Seems to be a little bit of a delay on Facebook, so I'm seeing it a bit delayed. So guys, if you can help me while you're watching him, and just let me know when he's back completely in
Oh
the
wow.
frame.
Okay, so I need to be closer this way and this way.
Okay.
I,
And do not be scared of that other side too. I'm sure that side loves you also. Feel free for you to go even a little bit more if you so desire. Thank you. Rich is like, I have to deal with this person who's not in my
no, it's
industry.
fun. So and let's go as they say, PS behind the scenes, which people a couple of things happened. We were working to make sure everything was working. That was first of all, which was good. But also there was the spec. I was planning to go into the newsroom and have this great background, and so it's nice and peaceful, and you see the newsroom, and maybe you have some graphics or something going behind me. But at the last minute, it's like, no, I'm running out of time. We literally ran out of time, so it's like, let's do it right here. Let's do it right now. So I'm just in the bedroom, in one of the bedrooms, where I get the best reception, and that's how we're here right now. So.
Well, that's part of life, right? You have to adapt.
Judy, do you wear glasses? I was just wondering. No, I'm just joking.
Sometimes I do.
I know. So we were trying to determine if we want to do glasses on or glasses off earlier. So
Yeah, well, I mean, I decided I just wanted to take it off, so not a problem. Okay, all right.
Okay.
All right. All right. All right. Okay. So to get us back on track now. So all right. So those are obviously some of the stories that generally touch you throughout your career. It almost, when you were speaking, for some reason, it took me back to um, uh, those social workers, because the way you spoke about it, there was a level of emotion that I could sense, even though we're on this live, but obviously I could pick that up, because you identified with it even more so because of your daughter's age, in terms of being able to empathize. So, all right, so let's go to during those moments and other, whether it be considered critical moments in doing your career for growth, for you going to that next level. What did you do in terms of whether you sought the help from coaches, mentors? Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
And then from that, I'm going to also want to go into how have you been a mentor for anyone. So let's start with the coaches, since I'm a coach.
Okay. Yes, you're a coach. We take coaching from everybody. Two things. I've luckily been blessed to have coaches along the way who do this for a living, and they'll give you tips. Don't do this. Don't do that. Do this and do that. So most stations will have consultants and career coaches will come in and talk to you about certain things you want to do. As far as like coaching per se, some of the people who taught me, one of my coaches or mentors, I should say, was a guy by the name of Michael Hill. He was an anchor in Dallas, and he taught me a
Mm-hmm.
lot. And what I'm one of those observants. I like to watch people, how
Mm-hmm.
they interact with other people and what they do. And he had all these little tips and things like that he would tell me. So he was somebody who I followed. I was just talking about this person yesterday. There was another lady who happened to be in Dallas, and I was big. This is another thing. I used to save scripts.
Really?
Yes, there was a lady by the name of Robbie Owen. She is still a morning reporter in Dallas, or a reporter in Dallas. She was a morning reporter at the time, and she wrote so effortlessly and so well. And I mean, her skill set was just top notch. And I would just save her scripts, because I would get a copy of her script and save it, and I'd look
Oh,
at it
wow.
put her stuff together, and I would study that. There were certain people whose presentation I liked. I actually paid homage to one just this past week. This was another man who was in Dallas, and I just did this one time. I wouldn't do it again. But he had a way of sigging out. It's like when you say, blah, blah, blah in Cleveland, John Smith, whatever news. He would do this really pregnant pause, and he would just go, such and such, Fox 4.
Oh, okay.
News. And he would just be that. It was kind of weird. It was just different. So I just did it this week, just as an homage to him, because so those are the people that I looked at, and
okay.
Along the lines, and some of them don't even know what an impact they had on me, because I just looked at their work, followed their work, and was impressed with what they did, and took little tidbits and everything. But the most important thing was someone told me, be yourself.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
The only thing that no company, it doesn't matter. There's no business, no company, no entity, no person can replace is you.
Right.
And as long as you're yourself, they can't find another. There's not another Richard DeVayne walking out there. There may be someone who wants to be like Richard DeVayne, who may be better or worse than Richard DeVayne, whatever, but there's not another Richard DeVayne. And when you know that, and that brand becomes you, and you know that that's your brand, and you acknowledge that, and you work that, you never have to worry, because Richard DeVayne will never be, I may not work for this station or that station or do this or do, but no one will have another Richard DeVayne. Hey, there may be reminds them of Richard DeVayne or whatever, but there's not going to be another Richard DeVayne.
Right.
There won't be another, and thank God there will not be.
And guys, as you can see, I'm getting so much love from my guest today. So, I'll take that as a compliment that he just wants to only one Judy and Chung. So thank you, Richard. Thank you. Okay. All righty. All right. So, so if you were to give our viewing audience here,
I'm sorry. And then mentoring. As a matter of fact, I wanted to say that mentoring. One of the things we take part in. There are a number of events that we do. I'm a member of the National Black Association of Journalists, and we have a local chapter, the AABJ, which is the Charlotte Area Association of Black Journalists. So I spend a lot of time doing things with them. But the mentoring is on a day-to-day with younger colleagues who are coming up in the business and whispering nuggets of wisdom to them. And also you can learn from them as well, because they're a lot more versed in the different dynamics. They pick up on the social media and just doing it all of the shooting, the editing, all that. So I pick up things from them. But as far as experience, like life experiences, ways to get stories to work creatively and things like that. So there's a daily situation of mentoring in my job that will never end. And also still going to the different colleges in the area, to high schools. If someone calls me, anyone out there says, hey, can you do this? I'm going to do it, and I'll get there and do that. And even as far as mentoring colleagues who are not necessarily in news, if someone asks me, will I sit down and do an interview that's going to be used for something to help someone else? So absolutely, anything I can do like that. So I didn't want to leave the mentoring part of it out.
Okay, great. So clearly it tells us that you put a lot of value on being coached, or being mentored, or being a mentor. Okay, all right, that's wonderful. Okay, so Fredona, yes, you see us. Oh, thank you so much for watching, and please feel free to go ahead and share. For those of you who missed the heading at the top of the hour, it was a letter to our younger self, and we are talking to Richard DeVayne, and he's telling us all about what's going on in his industry and some of the things that he's done. He was actually put on the spot where he was not able to actually tell us about something that he's done because we want to keep him safe. Okay. And I enjoy that. Oh my God. And he's actually going to say it now just to prove me wrong. I love it.
And I say this because we talk about this at work all the time. There are terrible tragedies that happen to people. I'm avoiding the question, but answer the question. There are terrible things that happen to people, and sometimes it's just from them being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Right. Someone drinks too much and gets behind the wheel. Someone plays with the gun when they shouldn't. Things like that. So sometimes we do things that, if not for the grace of God, you can be in that same situation as the person that we're reporting on. So I'm not going to sit here and say I don't want to bring certain things up now. because
No. And we can, Richard, I'm going to give you a get out of jail card free. We'll move right along. Thank you very much. I offered it before.
I was being
exactly. Take that peace offering. Okay. Anyway. All right. No problem. So, and listen, just to say one last thing on that, I always say, if you get out alive as a teenager, that alone is one of the biggest accomplishments that you've ever done. Because I think not all of us, but most of us have done some of the dumbest things. When you look back, you're like, how did I even survive? How did I even make it out alive? If I made it out alive, how did I make it out in one piece and not be incapacitated in some way? So yeah, I think most of us can relate to that, and some of them are better left where they were.
Cool. Say this. Got in a car. This is in college. Got in a car with some guys who were drinking, and when they were passing in the shoulder and in the median, I was like, if I get out of this, I'll never get in the car with anyone who's drinking again. And
okay, all right.
One time we were another drinking story. This is all in college. I had these little shots of something called diesel, and diesel is like extremely potent. And this is from someone who doesn't drink. And we went to a pool party, which was right up the road. It wasn't effective driving or anything. It was just right up the road from where we live, literally half a mile walking distance. And that was bad, things like that. Going in neighborhoods you shouldn't go in.
Right.
Late at night and driving around. And because I'm nocturnal. So when I didn't walk around the city of New York late at night and ran into some characters, say that. So there's been things like that have happened, things that I've done. So.
All right. So we're going to move on. So we're almost at the top of the hour. So I want to use the remainder of the time. And now we're going to get to that letter.
Okay.
So if you notice, I was doing that whole build up, so going back and forth a little bit, talking a little bit about, your younger self, et cetera, et cetera. So now we are back here in time at 7/22/2018, 3:54 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Richard is getting ready to write that letter to his younger self. Give me 5 top or core areas that you would address in that letter, and give me examples of what you would say.
The first thing would be saying hello. Now, I don't know, how old am I when getting the letter? That's the question. How old am I when getting the letter? That's the first thing.
I said today. How old are you now?
Oh, God. Okay. So then
if you don't want to say your age, that's okay. We kind of know already because you had to turn the TV. It was black and white. You probably had to put the cellophane over it to make it colored. I don't know.
Nostalgic. That's what it was. Yeah, right. Hey, let's just say that when I was a kid, we had the rabbit ears, which I said.
Right.
Remote controls, if there were any, were wired. So that gives you how far back we go. Remember 45s and LPs and... I don't remember. I've seen the 8-track thingies. I didn't have one. We didn't have one, but I saw them, so I know what that was like.
Okay.
The first thing, most importantly, would be introducing myself, because the younger Rich would be like, "Who's that old dude? Who's the dude with the gray?"
Okay.
Like, who is this cat? Like, hey, this is me.
Okay.
I'm coming to just tell you a little bit about myself, who you are, and I would go into who I am. What I've done, and you're the proud father of 2 phenomenal children. You have this many friends and associates, and this is what you do for a career. And, you're going to enjoy the next X whatever amount of years of your life. Core principles: remain true to yourself is going to be the start. That is the most important thing. You're going to have feelings inside that you're gonna have. You're going to have thoughts that you. They're going to be normal. You're going to not know where they're coming from. You're not going to know anything about them. But stay true to those core thoughts. Stay true to those thoughts, I should say. Believe in yourself. Most important thing. Believe who you are. Believe what you believe right now. Because I can tell you, even decades later, those are going to prove true.
Okay.
Love yourself.
Gotcha.
And continue to love others. because regardless of any pains that you may go through or anything that you go through in life, it's going to be worth it. Everything is gonna work out. Let me share something with you, because I think that if I can stop for just a few seconds and explain this, Judy knows, but some people who are watching may not know that September the 6th of last year, on my, this is work related, while I was working, I just finished my third live shot. I usually have 4 live shots and then a tape live shot in the morning. I do the morning shows here in Charlotte. And after one, I wanted to walk to a gas station and pick up some water or something else, go to the restroom. And on my way back, I walked through a parking lot because I had a Fitbit, which I'm not wearing now. That's important. Trying to get those steps in. So I'm trying to get those steps in. Anyway, walking through a parking lot, and an accident happened where a truck came in and hit me and knocked me down. And then the driver didn't see, and he backed up. And when he backed up, he went over my leg and shattered my leg. Now, don't worry, folks. I can walk. I have a rod and pins in my leg, and at times it's still difficult, very difficult to walk. And I shouldn't be talking too much about it. I'm not supposed to, but I'm just going to say that much. And so, even to that, even as much as that is concerned, I don't necessarily know that I would warn Richard about changing his path that day. Because excruciating, painful as it was, and the things that I've gone through since then, I just count them all joy, because in the long run, it all works out. You find out your friends, you get closer to people, you find out a lot of things about yourself, your internal fortitude, what you can handle, what you can't, and you take that. And so even, and I'm saying that to say that through hardships, so losing family members, losing, I mentioned friend girls, as we like to say sometimes. My best girlfriend in the whole wide world was more like a sister to me. Losing her years ago, I would tell the younger Richard to enjoy every moment, enjoy every step with the people who you choose to walk with, because you don't know; it's not promised. I tell people every day that. At least 2 to 3 times a week, I'm sitting in front of somebody who thought that they had more time with somebody that they loved.
Right.
They don't. Right. So that would be part of the letter. That would be my way of saying to people that even though I'm writing that letter to advise, I would not tell him not to make a lot of. There's some cleaners I would tell him not to go to. There's a couple restaurants, even some in Charlotte, you don't need to go to. But And there's and I'll tell you this, there's some outfits that I've worn, but I see some pictures and I'm like, wow. And I was very smart, because the awkward Richard, years of the awkwardness, which is still probably going on. There's some videos that I have of me and pictures that no one will ever see.
I was actually about to ask you if you would love to drop in the comment section some of those, I will survive kind of outfits, and or maybe those 60s outfits as a hippie kid or something. I don't know. The bell bottoms.
And I'm not, no, bell bottoms. Come on, it's not that old. No.
Listen, you left it wide open, right? So I'm going to go for it.
There was some outfits. There was some haircuts. There was some mistakes.
Okay.
Yeah, I've made a few.
Okay, all right. So
they're out. Go search for them on social media. You won't find them. I have them all.
Okay, so we've covered that. You'll definitely say hello for us, because you want to wonder who's this old dude. Okay, fine. So we covered the pleasantries. We've covered definitely be yourself. You'd also cover that based on what you've experienced in life, whether it be physically or socially, that you will not necessarily want to give any advice that would have changed that trajectory, because of what it's shown you and who's made you out who you are today. And then you've also recognized that there were more important things for you to be more concerned about, like, for instance, the death of your friend. And I'm sorry about that, by the way. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So those are 3 areas. So we needed 5. So I still need 2 more from you. Not about the dress. It's 2 core areas if you were to write to the younger Richard. So I want you to dig deep for me and give me something, because what I want to, so I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit more
That's
in
fine.
terms of, okay. I want our viewers listening, if they're anyone who have any younger kids, even if they don't want to go into journalism, but they're in a teenage stage of their lives now, so they can share this with their kids and say, this is what this journalist at this stage in his life would have said to his younger self. So there's something a bit meaningful. Not to say that the other things weren't
Yeah, yeah.
meaningful, but yeah.
You're talking about like following. Well, we've talked about following your dream. We've talked about. It would be tough. I would say, your parents are right. Your parents are right because they are. And one of the
Yes.
as you're what 6 feet tall and bulletproof when you're young, and you don't realize things will happen. But unfortunately, I think I realized that because of what I did as a career, and then some of the things that I saw in college. So I did realize those things. Be a better person. Be a better
Mm.
person. Um, there are lots of ways in my life that I've fallen as not being a better person or being the better person.
So
Uh,
how would you be the better person? Give me just a very
time,
basic example.
more time
Huh?
with family, more time with
Okay.
kids, more time with friends, less time with things that don't matter. There are things that don't matter.
Okay.
The
Mhm.
computer, certain TV shows don't matter. I mean, in the grand scheme,
Okay.
that's not going to make you any better. Uh, More time with kids, making more activities, more events
Mhm, mhm.
for my children and for other people. Spending more
Okay.
time with people would be good. Doing, and I can hear exes talking about that also. Like, oh yeah, I know it's more time. Yeah, not trying to save the world, so to speak, and losing yourself for your relationships would probably be something that I would have to work on.
Oh, okay. Okay. So when you say not trying to save your world, are you talking from a career point of a professional point of view, or are you even talking personal and professional?
Also, if and if someone calls me and they ask me a question or they're having an issue, I'm going to sit there and talk to them, and I'm gonna.
Hmm.
It doesn't matter. I'm going to say, hey, okay, what can we do? How can I help you? And
Okay.
I might have a something I have to do with a certain someone at that time, and I'll
Mhm.
put that on the back burner and say, wait, okay, so because someone needs me, they need me.
Okay.
He's upset about his girlfriend. He's upset about his wife. So I'm gonna spend that time.
Okay.
And sometimes you have to say, no, I can't do that. I need to get back to taking care of family first. So
Right. Okay. So in other words, then you'll be able to prioritize and understand what's really important in life. And
exactly,
some of those things, yes, friends are important, but your family comes first.
absolutely.
Um, okay, I got you. Alrighty. So the if did you do? I think you still owe me one.
Okay.
Um,
They keep saying go deep, and I'm like,
well, go what you want to go.
no,
I was trying to guide you.
let me give you the 6 second before I forget. The 6 second rule is it's pause.
Okay.
If I'm talking to someone on camera and
Hmm.
whatever the subject, especially if it's emotional, what happens is a lot of times there is a need to fill the void of silence.
Right.
So, and you can't do this now. Don't try it now because I know it. But if you're talking to someone, you really want them to open up. Just don't say anything. Just look at them and
Hmm.
look at them with an understanding eye because they'll think that they have to speak to
Hmm.
fill the space
Right.
and
Hmm.
continue to give you information or talk to you. And that's
Hmm.
something we use a lot.
Yeah, we actually do that in coaching also. We may not call it the 6 second rule, but we do the same thing too, where we will, yeah, but yes, I mean, and it makes a lot of sense because, as you said, usually when you say silent, as you said, for some reason, the human body and the psychology space think, okay, I need to fill that void, so I need to say more. And usually, sometimes that saying more either can get you in trouble. You should have stayed silent. So yeah. All right, you guys. We're basically a little bit beyond the hour. So what I would like to say to you, Richard, are there any before we wrap up that you'd like to share with us? Again,
I just
I'm
love
not guiding you, whatever you want to say.
doing. I just love what you're doing, and throughout all of our little trying to get this together today. This was really a lot of fun. We'll have to do it again, and maybe I'll be better. it's fun to be on the other side, to be interviewed. This is different. So now I see. I'm trying to answer. You got me with a couple good questions. But
So are you saying there's hope for me as a journalist? He's
oh,
like, don't push it.
the best thing about everybody now has that ability with our cell phones and social media to go out there and actually help us do our job, because we rely heavily nowadays, and it's really great because uh, every day someone's calling me and telling me, "Did you know? Did you hear?" And you
Right.
something that we can put on air, that we can get to the bottom of, or something of that nature. So I really appreciate that. Coaching is so important. Without the quality people that I've had in my life, someone told me as another thing I talked to the younger Richard about. There are going to be people coming to your path that are going to give you advice. Listen to them. Listen to them,
Mm-hmm.
because they're going to tell you some nuggets. There's some people who tell me, "Hey, listen to this guy. He knows what he's talking about," and I do, and then I learn things. I remember, I'll tell you this though. There was a guy, and this is part that shaped me. I was in a hospital for a brother or something, getting a checkup when I was a little kid, and I
Mm-hmm.
remember I was sitting down. I saw this guy. He was sitting on a bench, and he might have been 18 to 21. Uh, and he had his head against the wall, and he just looked over at me and he goes, "Kid, don't ever grow up." And you
Oh
know what?
gosh.
I spent my whole life trying not to grow up. As a lot of people will tell you, I live my life with one foot and a good time and enjoy myself, because as I told everybody, when we would come take our trips, all of us, my father and mother, would load us in the car and we go places. The same with my kids and now. But when you load up in the car and you go someplace, yeah, you're going to a certain destination and everything, but the stopping, the you spill your juice or something or whatever, you see certain sights, or you might stop along the way and meet somebody. All of that is part of the journey, and
Mm-hmm.
that's the most fun. That's what you remember. So life
Right.
is about the journey. It's not about the destination. The destination is the graveyard and then the life after. But right now, life is about the journey, and
The
we should
journey.
enjoy the journey.
Okay.
So that's what I would
Okay.
tell my. That's what I would write to him. Enjoy the journey.
Okay. All right. So I think we can basically wrap up on that one. Enjoy the journey, because I think that's key. So that's to acknowledge that we have Deborah. So hello. She's saying hi, Richard. And then Edward White is saying thanks for the tips. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed it. For those of you who have joined late, we're wrapping up at this moment. It was a letter to your younger self. So feel free, after this is posted, to go ahead and listen to the replay, and make sure you share, and comment also. That would be wonderful. If you thought this was helpful and informative, do not be scared to give us the love and the likes. And thank you, Richard, so much for your time. I appreciate it. As you said, we should do this again. And yeah, looking forward to talking to you as always. Take care. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye. This was great.
Yeah.